My journey as a digital nomad traveler started from a really young age. I was actually born in Kuwait to Egyptian parents, and we moved back to Egypt after the first Gulf War. So, by the time I moved to the US, I had already lived in 3 different continents. And I feel like that really shaped how I see travel and how I see cultures and communities. As I got older, I was lucky enough to be able to build a career that allowed me to work remotely while traveling. And, over the years, I've worked across all 7 continents, experiencing digital nomadism and how it's reshaping the world, and sometimes in a positive way, in a negative way. And just recently we decided to start a company called Nomad Nest, which is a travel company. And the idea, it's not a brand new idea. There are companies like this that exist, but the idea really came from late last year when a company called Remote Year shut down unexpectedly, leaving thousands of people of the community, myself included, were abandoned and didn't have the structure that we relied on for the digital nomadism and going to all these different places. And we realized that there was an opportunity to create something better and something more sustainable and community driven and more accessible at a better price point. So at its core, Nomad Nest is about really creating a more meaningful way to experience the world, and one that benefits both the community, the travelers, and the places that we visit. We want to keep things lean and directly support local economies and make sure that the costs are manageable for our community.
Great stuff. What is actually responsible nomadism?
To me, it's all about traveling with intention. It means making sure that remote workers are adding value to the places that we visit rather than disrupting the local economies and the communities. Traditional tourism often focuses on short, high impact visits. So people just kind of come in for a few days. They stay at big hotel chains. They kind of leave without engaging with the local cultures, and they stay within their bubbles for the tour for a week or 10 days or whatever, and then they leave. But digital nomads, on the other hand, they really stay longer. They help support the small businesses. They use the local services. They integrate with daily life. So if it's not done responsibly, nomadism can also contribute to rising costs for locals and even gentrification, which is why it's important to really be mindful of how we travel and how we impact the communities that we visit.
The impact of digital nomads within the economy side, how is it affecting them?
We can either impact the economies positively or negatively. So let's talk about the positive side of being a digital nomad. Unlike traditional tourists, we contribute to local economies in a more sustainable way because we stay longer. So we provide more of a steady income for the businesses in that community that we're visiting. Instead of a one-time visit to a cafe or a restaurant, we kind of become regulars. We find a cafe that we like, we go there for the entire time that we're there. We tend to use local services like laundry, gyms, co-working spaces. We visit the local markets. Typical tourists tend to just show up for a few days and they leave. We have a more regular presence, which also helps create local job opportunities, especially for communities that focus on remote workers, meaning they offer rentals specifically for remote workers or social events or even skill sharing or language classes, things of that nature that helps grow and create more job opportunities in the local communities. When we started Nomad Nest, we wanted to take it a step further. Where we don't want to just send people to a city or a destination. Our focus is to first partner with the local businesses, making sure that the money from our community goes directly into the local economy. For an example, instead of using big corporate hotel chains to host our nomads, we work with locally owned guest houses or landlords. A good example of this, I'll speak about Buenos Aires, Argentina, because I've stayed there a long time and it's one of my favorite cities. But digital nomads really helped revive a struggling economy. The economy in Argentina was really struggling for a long time with inflation. The presence of digital nomads that was growing over the years really helped sustain the economy there and strengthen it, especially for the smaller businesses. And I think the same thing is definitely happening here in Cape Town, where the remote workers are growing. The numbers are growing every year. And it's, again, helping support the co-working spaces and the community.
I'm trying to lead the question to the pitfalls of the digital nomad. How do you handle that?
I mean, if we're talking about the pitfalls and the possible negative impact of digital nomads have on a location that they visit, it's definitely a very important discussion. I think while digital nomads bring a lot of economic benefits, if not handled responsibly, they can also contribute to gentrification and displacement for the local communities. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen this happen already in places like Bali, in Mexico City, Lisbon. You know, those places have become major nomad hubs, but unfortunately at a cost to local communities. I mean, again, Bali, Canggu, Bali specifically, you know, is used to be a very affordable place. Rental prices in the last few years have skyrocketed, making it very difficult for the locals to find affordable housing because many of the landlords, they prefer renting short term to tourists and visitors versus to the locals because they'll make way more money that way. So if you're not conscious about those decisions you're making when you're going to a place of where you're staying, will ultimately negatively impact the local communities. You know, Lisbon is facing a similar issue. The government had very good incentives for digital nomads. You know, they did like a lot of tax breaks for a lot of foreign workers, combined with an influx of digital nomads, especially, I mean, it was pre-pandemic, but also post-pandemic. It has really driven the property values, and the cost of living in Lisbon right now is extremely high. Of course, it boosted the economy there. It definitely helped out the economy, but it also displaced a lot of locals who had to move to outside of the city areas to find more affordable housing. Everybody who's a digital nomad should really think about these things when they're making a decision of where they're going to stay. And for us as a company, we want to set things in place that would help us not be part of the problem. So we try to approach it a little differently. Again, we only want to go to destinations where we know our presence is going to be a positive impact, not a negative one. We always work directly with the local vendors and we pay up front, making sure that any nomad that comes to one of our programs or trips understands the difference between traveling responsibly and just kind of being, you know, somebody who just shows up for a trip, not really thinking about the impact that they're having.
Most definitely.
So, for example, in Cape Town, we partnered with a company called Uzenzu Travel. They're locally owned. They help us handle all the weekend adventures and the tours for our nomads.
Something that interests me is like, I understand, like, especially in Cape Town, like what happened is like a lot of locals, they complain now, like people from overseas coming in Cape Town, they're making their rentals more expensive. There's no affordability anymore. Like where I was staying in Greenpoint, my rent started to skyrocket. In fact, last year, early, and then I was surprised. But I started to understand, like, also the tourists coming from overseas, they do also boost the economy of the country.
Right. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, again, they boost the economy, but they also, if not done carefully, and it's the responsibility of the individual and the group. So, you know, the governments also have to kind of take that into account and create an infrastructure that can be utilized to help support locals, but at the same time, learn the lessons from places like Lisbon and Bali to make sure that there's infrastructure in place that helps the local economy.
Yeah. Let's talk about the mother city / Cape Town. Why Cape Town?
South Africa is a beautiful country, and Cape Town specifically has everything a digital nomad could ever ask for. It's no surprise that a lot more remote workers are choosing it, and there's regular people that show up here every year. So obviously, the first thing is it's incredibly affordable compared to Europe or North America. You get a higher quality of life for a much lower cost. The co-working scene here has grown over the years. There's amazing locally owned co-working spaces that are not just about work, but about building connections. A lot of the local entrepreneurs visit these co-working spaces. That's great for cultural exchange in a way. Yeah, so I mean, Cape Town is a special place because it has a lot of cultural and natural diversity. You have world-class beaches, mountains, wine country, all within a short drive, and there's obviously a huge sense of community. I mean, when I showed up here just a few weeks ago, there was already a huge community of digital nomads that was excited and ready to go. And it was very easy to connect and talk to people and go out for coffee or dinner or anything like that. So there's already a sense of community here in Cape Town that helps the remote work scene thrive, and people are just eager to connect together here. And it's another reason why we chose to launch a program here in Cape Town starting in September. So we'll be hosting in Cape Town starting in September. So we'll be here September, October, November, December at least. And then, so we're really excited. And again, The goal is to make sure that we're bringing the community here together, but also doing it in a responsible way that helps the local economy.
Nice. I like that. And before we conclude, let's talk about how the listeners can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the best way to learn more about us is to visit our website. It's nomadnest.com. So that's really the best way to get all the information you need about all of the upcoming trips, including Cape Town, and also learn about what Nomad Nest is all about. We talk a lot about how we, again, structure our trips and what's important to us and our values to really learn about how we do things responsibly. Mm-hmm. We also have a WhatsApp community where travelers can connect, ask questions, share experiences, tips for responsible travel. And you can also find the link on our website. So those would be the two best ways to learn more and get involved with the Nomad Nest movement.
Stunning, man. Stunning. This, I like, there's a lot of things that I was listening to on during the interview. I think, I think there's a lot of knowledge behind what you guys are doing. That's something that actually I know personally, but I can imagine a lot of people, they're getting confused. Like, why now the rent is expensive? Why this is expensive? I think that's the thing that actually interests me more about it, and also the responsibility of me as being a digital nomad.
The best advice for anybody coming to a place like Cape Town is we should learn from the mistakes of the past and not just keep repeating them to every new beautiful destination that we find that we want to go to. So